Now, when it's costly to search for a new job, employees must decide when it makes sense to actually engage in the search for a new job and when to simply just stay put, right? And these costs have some interesting implications for why wages tend to rise with job experience as well as with the length of time that a person stays with a firm, right? It's no secret that people with experience get higher paying jobs than people without experience. And I bet it makes perfect sense to you that a person who has worked for a company or for the same company for a longer period of time tends to earn more than a new person hired at the same level, right? And the question here is why, right? So let's think about job experience. What is job experience really doing? Right? So job experience is a simple explanation for why a worker earns higher wage for more experience is because, well, they have more experience, right? Well, we can translate that into economics, and what we're saying here is job experience is basically equivalent to developing what we call human capital, right? You're learning things about how to do the work, right? And so you are more knowledgeable of how to do the job. But another thing that goes, and we've talked about this. We talked about this last week, so I won't spend too much time on that one. But another interesting thing that very few people think about is job experience reduces uncertainty, right? And so let's pretend something. So someone just coming out of college, so like you guys, right? You guys, when you graduate from college, you're going to have very little work experience compared to people who have been out of college for a long time, okay? And so the employer that you go and work for is going to face some amount of uncertainty as to how productive you really are, right? Because you don't have a history of being productive. Okay, and so what this means is there's going to be a wide variance in terms of how productive you are, or your marginal productivity of labor, because there's no history. The employer can't look at what you've done in the past to infer how productive you will be, right? Someone with lots of experience, though, is going to be more of a known commodity, right? We have more information that says, hey, this person actually is productive, and we know that by virtue of them having a job before, right? And so the interesting thing is that while it may be very difficult for you to find your first job, right? So your first job is going to be very tough to find. Finding your second job is going to be much easier. And the reason why is because you will have proven, if you do a good job at your first job, that is, right? If you prove at your first job that you're productive, you're on time, you're punctual, well, that's going to reduce uncertainty about whether or not you show up for work, right? And whether or not you get your job done. And so it becomes much easier for you to find a second job once you've already found the first job, okay? So basically, right now, firms or businesses are going to be more uncertain about you than they will be about someone else who has more job experience, right? This is why, by the way, internship programs are important, right? This is why on-campus jobs are important, right? These are all things that evidence experience or your ability to show up for work, right? These are all things that are important. Okay. Now, another reason why this makes sense that people with more job experience get paid more is due to the way the job market seems to work, right? So it's not the case that every June employers around the country start looking to hire, right? That's not what happens, right? There's people losing or leaving jobs and moving around or exiting the workforce throughout the whole year, right? And so jobs sort of pop up here and there, and if you happen to see them, right, you can actually apply for them and maybe get the job and go back to your current employer and say, hey, I got an offer for a higher wage, pay me more and I'll stay, right? And so people who have more job experience tend to not only have more human capital, have reduced uncertainty about their labor, but they're also more aware of job opportunities, right? Which basically is raising or potentially raising their opportunity cost. And if they raise their opportunity cost, well, they get a raise, okay? Another thing, or the other one, is the length of employment. Right? People who work for a company for a longer period of time tend to get paid higher than people who just started, right? Even if they're brought in at the same level, right? So, you know, the executive vice president of sales who's been with the company for 20 years is probably going to be paid more than the executive vice president of sales who's been working with the company for 6 weeks, right? And so, but why, right? So why is that true, okay? Well, just like the experienced workers above, people who have been with the company for a longer period of time will have seen more of these random opportunities, right? But they'll also have developed, you know, very firm-specific capital, right? So there's developing like human capital, which is the general idea of how to do your job. But then there's also developing what we call firm-specific capital. Right? So Ferris, for example, I know the code to the copier, right? I know the code to use the copy machine over in the business building, and as a result, that would be firm-specific capital, because that copy code, which I'm not going to tell you, it only works here, right? Only people that work at Ferris know that code. Okay. We also could know pricing strategies. So I know how I know how the pricing strategies at a boat washing company in northern Michigan work, because I worked there for 2 years, right? So I worked for a boat washing company for 2 years. I know their pricing strategy. I know how they do it, right? I have a list of their customers, right? I know what their customers have ordered in the past, right? And all kinds of other very specific things that are only valuable to this individual firm, right? And all of this is going to be incredibly valuable to the employer, as it increases the employee's ability to be more effective or more productive for them, right? And so as a result of this firm-specific capital, businesses or firms will often pay higher wages in order to retain the workers who have a greater amount of firm-specific capital, which is basically reflecting these workers' increased productivity, right? So basically, firm-specific capital leads to higher productivity by the workers, right? Or the marginal productivity of labor increases. Okay. Now, it's worth mentioning here that search costs for employment and the search costs for unemployment are very related, right? Searching for a job is something that unemployed people must do, right? They're constantly looking for work, right? And this search takes time and effort. And the longer it takes to find a job, or the more effort that must be put into finding a job, the longer a person will remain unemployed. So as a result, higher search costs, the higher the frictions are on the employee side, right, will result in longer spells of unemployment and a higher unemployment rate. Okay, so these costs have tremendous impacts for lots of figures that we use to govern sort of how, or to gauge how the economy is doing, right? High search costs imply a high unemployment rate, because people who lose their job will be unemployed for a longer period of time.